Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Storytime, Life and Times Part 6. That's right. It's been a while since we've done one of these, but a lot of you have asked me recently to keep going with the series, so I thought I'd pick it back up and do something a little bit different here. Before we hop in case you're not familiar with the series, a couple months ago I started retelling the story of how I got started in poker. And there have been 5 parts of the story so far. You can go check those out if you want. I'll put a link up so you guys can go find those. But in short, brief summary, basically I started my poker career when I was 16 years old. By cashing in a free roll for $5, and I took those $5 and played nickels and dimes, played for nickels and dimes, limit hold'em, whatever it had to do, and grinded that up to about $20,000 a year later, which is where I pick up the story in about September 2005. I had just turned 18 in April of 2005, so I was about 18 years old, had about $20,000 to my name, and what I did was, back in 2006 or 2008, I don't remember which, but I wrote up the entire story of how I got into poker. So I wrote that all down into like a journal entry sort of post thing. And so basically what you guys are seeing here is basically me reading that story, sharing some more memories. I went and dug up some hands and stuff like that too. So it's kind of like the culmination of all that thing. It's like it's a video blog version of a journal post sort of thing, that kind of thing. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. So I had about $20,000 to my name in September 2005. Just came back from my first real successful trip up at Turning Stone, which was an 18 and up casino up in upstate New York. And so I came back home excited to get in there. I was excited, just as excited. Yeah, clean shaven also, by the way, in case you're not caught up. That's right, clean shaven. So I was really, really excited to get home and play some online poker. I had just been told stories of these guys. But it was my first time really that August trip where I had interacted with people from the poker community. So I went to Turning Stone and heard stories of people who had just been to the World Series, and I had heard stories of guys playing for huge hands online, playing $10,000 pots and bluffing guys on the internet. And for me, that was my first experience that was my first exposure to the poker community at large, and I found it to be incredibly exciting. Because up till then I was just really like an online kid that lived by myself, and none of my friends played for high stakes or played even medium stakes or even low stakes online. Really, I just had friends that played in home games and had never really met people who played poker professionally before, real human in-person people. So I came home remotivated. I remember driving home from that trip, even though I hadn't won. I drove home and I was excited. I wanted to get out there and try to do some work. So I had a goal to make $100,000 by the end of the year. At this point, I probably made about 35K total and had about 20 or 25K to my name, something like that. So this September was my very first W Coup. I remember that very well. Where back in the old enough days where I had a girlfriend at the time. Yes, that's right. And I distinctly remember playing like the 12 o'clock or the early scoop event, or W Coup event rather, playing the early event, these online tournaments that existed back then. And I remember playing the early event and then trying to make the late event, or just trying to play doing the thing where I was trying to see her and then make it back in time for the 2 p.m. tournament or something like that. I very distinctly remember her not being happy about that. But turns out that probably wasn't the only thing she was unhappy with. But let's ignore that for now. And I didn't do anything in it, but I remember it was awesome. It was my first time even competing, and I remember that being an awesome thing. And so also during this time, this was the first time in my life where I started doing any kind of poker training. If you've been around for a very long time, you might even remember that I wrote it couldn't have been that much good material, because my thought process wasn't that great at the time. But I wrote up all my thoughts, all my discoveries that I had come up with, all the epiphanies I had at that point in my life, and I wrote that all up into a thing that I called the Spicy System, which I don't remember why exactly they came up with the name of it, but the name of the site that I had created for my video platform ended up being the Spice Box. It's a box of things that are interesting. That's what I called it, the Spice Box. Sure. So that was my own little private training site that I created for my friends and forum mates at the Something Awful Poker Forum, which was my home forum back in the day. So I wrote this spicy system, as it were, even though I ate even more plainly back then than I do now. But so I wrote this up, and it was just awesome. I really enjoyed it. It was my first exposure teaching, really, in a poker setting, and I really enjoyed it. At this point, I had taught karate for the better part of 7 years or 6 years. I guess I was 18, so like probably closer to 6 or 5 years. But so I had taught a lot before, but I hadn't really had too much experience teaching anything besides karate. But I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I really enjoyed writing. I enjoyed teaching. I thought it was pretty awesome. So let's check out some of the hands from the era. This is a hand that I played. This is a hand that I played in 2005. I don't remember exactly when, and the timestamps aren't exactly right. But so basically, what we have here, it's a couple interesting hands. I thought these are hands that I saved back in the day for some reason. I don't know why. I thought they were interesting. So in this hand, folds me in the or complete. I call. I complete in the small blind with 7-4 suited. I flop 2 per because hey, it wouldn't be a hand if I didn't. I decided to bet out $30. Sure, why not? And under the gun limper raises to $70, which is an interesting size. And it folds back to me, and I'm just like, I have 2 pair, bitch. I re-raise. And he calls. Turn is a 6 of diamonds, and I decide to bet 500 into 500. I actually overbet pot by $15. I'm just like, 500? I think I was just trying to protect my hand a little bit, and he calls, so I guess I got what I wanted. River 3, and he has $400 left, and there's $1,500 in there, so I go, I'm all in. I guess. What else am I supposed to do? So, river is a 3. I go all in, as promised, and he calls, and look at that. That's right, $2,300 pot with the 7 and the 4. So that was pretty fun. Another hand that I played from the era, full ring 5-10 game. Guy opens under the gun 1 to $45. Okay, gets a call and a call. I make the ridiculous raise to $115, which is just crazy, just absolutely crazy, from the big blind no less. So you can see my thought process was really strong. Big blind out of position, $115 dealer. I don't think I'd make it $115 to a $45 raise. Never mind a $45 raise, a call and a call. So everyone calls, as you would expect, because my sizing is pretty bad. And the old flop comes queen 10 and 4. That's right, top set, no big deal. And I bet $300, which I think is actually fine, into 400. We had 2,500 to start the hand, and I don't think any of our opponents have more than 1,500. But our opponent does call, who does have 1,500. And we turn the old king ball, and I bet, and he shoves, and I call. River is the king, and I got a full house, bitch. Oh, he has 4 of a kind. So I lost that $3,400 pot as a 18-year-old. That was fun. I have a couple of these, but they're really not that interesting. Like, I put up any big pot, so I have like aces versus ace king. They're just not really that interesting. But I thought it would be cool to share with you guys a couple of them. Not planning on showing all of the most boring hands, but there were some fun ones that made it through the time capsule of history or whatever into the current day. So I was having fun playing 3-6, 5-10. I remember loving poker. I was going to school at this point, but I was going to school, but my mind was in love with poker. I was already disenchanted by school, but not really. I was just like normal disenchanted. I wasn't like super angsty or anything like that. But I focused on poker. I played poker all the time, man. Like, you guys don't understand. Like, I was beyond obsessed. Like, I read every book, watched every video. I talked poker nonstop. I didn't have non-poker friends besides the last few karate friends that I had of that era. Like, I was already transitioning so hardcore into poker. I just loved it. I just wanted to learn and do better and always improve, always trying to analyze, plays that I made and all of that. So by the time October came around, I was really excited because there was a live tournament series up at Turning Stone in the middle of October. So I was very excited about this. Another shot at some live poker glory. I was like really excited about that. And in the middle of October, I came down with what the doctor described, I'll never forget, the doctor described as a highly contagious bacterial infection. So, okay, that kind of sucks. It was like the week of the event. And I remember how badly it hurt. I couldn't eat, drink, swallow. It felt like I had razor blades lining my throat. It was awful. I remember being really sick. But the doctor said that if I took antibiotics, I would be fine. So I said okay, and even though I could barely eat or drink, I was told I wasn't going to be contagious, and I drove up anyway, like 3 days later, to play this series of tournaments upstate at Turning Stone. So I drove 6 hours with the sickness in the rain up to Turning Stone to play these like average buy-in of $300 tournaments, and that's some dedication right there, right? And this ended up being my first ever live tournament cash. Yes, that's right. Check this out. You guys are going to be so jealous. That's right. There we go. That's right, bitches. $200 buy-in, 14th place. Yes, that's right. Ballin'. So yeah, I had my very first cash. That was great. My very first cash in the live record books. But I remember distinctly like carrying around a bottle of Tylenol with me and like eating lozenges like they were nothing, and my throat was like really pretty sick. Like I remember how sick I was, and it was really not the greatest of ideas that I had to go play. But it was fine. I was okay. I remember leaving Turning Stone at the end of the series feeling okay, not 100%, but I was all right. And went back home and started playing some more shorthanded games. This was the time in my life where I started playing shorthanded for the very first time, because I just hadn't really had any experience. I'd only played full ring at this point in my life, and when the game is broke down, I pretty much left. But I started realizing that the shorthanded games were actually like the better value farms than the full ring tables, because your hands were kind of untied. Creativity was rewarded a little bit more, and designing cages for people and putting them right on in there, that was so much more doable shorthanded. People just had worse hands, and I really started to begin my love affair with shorthanded poker games in this time of my life, this October-ish 2005. And in the last 15 days of October, I managed to win $10,000, which was pretty awesome at the time. And I just started really feeling good. Things really started to click. Let me show you guys some pictures from the times. So this is my earn of the period. So I pretty much broke even for the majority of like the first half of the September, October, as school started getting into action and all of that stuff. And then towards the end, obviously, I heated pretty nicely at the end of the month, and just took that last 10,000. So this is like September 1st to October 30th there or so. And there's that little video graph picture thing. Oh, look at that transition. How beautiful is that? I'm gonna get an Emmy for this video. I know it. So you can see where I put most of my time in back in the day. And yeah, that looks about right to me. I played a lot of sites. I basically wanted money everywhere where a game could run, just so I could play wherever, anytime, anywhere. Back then, there were so many games, it didn't even matter. But obviously, I had some pretty good success on Pacific, which was my home site at the time. And I think there's one more. Oh yeah, this was my earn to date up until the end of October. So I did pretty well. I had like 38K lifetime by the end of October, and I was feeling pretty good about myself all in all. So that pretty much wraps up October, and then we get into hold on a sec. Sorry about that. We had I thought I was going to fall. I had to stop and make sure that disaster didn't unfold in front of you guys. That would be awful. Anyway, so as you guys remember, I had this goal to get 100K by the end of the year as my earnings rate, but I was still pretty far off. I was still very far away from there, but I thought it was at least possible, and if not then, I thought I would get there by my birthday, probably in April of the next year, or that was my goal, so to speak. And even though it seemed crazy, that was what I wanted to try to accomplish. So I moved up to playing 510 as my like default game in November, and mostly was doing pretty well, and had recovered from the throat illness by the beginning of November, but I had never felt 100%. I remember, or if I did, it was very brief. And I distinctly remember going shopping with two friends of mine from the karate era, and feeling that was the first time that I felt like my stomach was just uncomfortable. And as November went on, I got sicker and sicker, and as some of you guys know, well, I guess I'll not spoil what I was sick from yet, So I got sicker and sicker, and I started out the middle of November, the beginning of when I got sick, at about 155 pounds. And as I got sicker and sicker, my stomach got worse and worse, and I ate less and slept less and had more and more issues, more and more problems. I kept losing weight. I went to the doctor, and the doctor said that pretty much that the antibiotics that I took for my throat back in October had damaged or impacted my intestines, and thus that's what was causing all of this misery. And I was like, oh, okay. And for this, he prescribed more antibiotics, which I don't believe was the correct thing to do here, although I'm not a doctor. And I got sicker and sicker and sicker. And with Thanksgiving floating around, it was impossible to get a specialist. So I just got sicker and sicker. And by the time Thanksgiving had rolled around, I spent Thanksgiving by myself in my bedroom eating a bagel. And I remember I was too weak to go downstairs and couldn't have eaten anything even if I had made it. And that's pretty scary. I remember being truly, for the first time in my life, like, afraid. I don't think I was really that close to being in any real immediate danger, but having no idea what was wrong with me, having no idea, not being able to sleep or eat, my energy levels are beyond low. My sanity and logic are just not going to function with no sleep and not being able to eat. And I remember being beyond like, I don't remember being like miserable, but I remember being worried. I remember being worried and feeling a lot of anxiety about being sick. And I just had to wait for this specialist to have availability for me. It was not a fun time in my life, not a fun time in my life. By the time that I saw the specialist, who pretty much told me in 10 minutes, and I remember this guy, I met this specialist this is the guy I've been waiting to see. He's like the guy that I've been waiting to see for a month or 3 weeks or 2 weeks, or it was more than 2 weeks. It was probably like 3 weeks. I finally get to see this guy, and he was the most like cold-hearted, non-empathetic person that I'd ever met in my life, and maybe to this day is still true. He just treated me like I was like a cat. Like, not even a nice veterinarian would treat a cat. It was not even like we would treat cats. He just treated me terribly, and he was very callous. And the day, it was an experience that I look back on and just go like, when somebody's hurting like that, how do you treat someone that way? I don't know. And it really bothered me. It was my first time needing someone like that. And to have someone who basically treated it as nothing. And I was an 18-year-old kid who had been sick for the very first time I'm not going to go into gory, gruesome details, but if you know what I have, it's not a pleasant thing to go through. And he pretty much took about 10 minutes before he told me that I had to get a colonoscopy done to really identify what the issue was. So, okay, if you've ever had a colonoscopy before, you know that the worst part of it is the prep. They give you these vile things to drink that flush your system out, and those things are awful to take when you're fully healthy and you're just going for the procedure. When you haven't eaten anything for 3 weeks, really, and you've, not sleeping at all. It's very hard to sleep when you have to go to the bathroom 20 times in a day. It's very hard to sleep. And it was awful. It was awful. I remember just the days of prep were just like constantly puking and just massive amounts of pain and misery. And by the time that I went to the hospital on the Monday morning of the procedure, I needed my mother to help me walk. I was 130 pounds, which is crazy. In like 3 weeks, I lost like 25 pounds. Quite the diet plan, right? And I went to the doctor. I went to the hospital not knowing what was going to happen. And, that was got to be the sickest and the weakest I've ever been in my life. So we went. Turns out, ulcerative colitis. That's what the answer came out to be. Nothing causes it. Nothing, it's not even hereditary. It's just like a thing you get. And I've always been suspicious of the medication that I took for my throat somehow causing it. I've always been suspicious of, I don't know, there's a high prevalence of it on Long Island particularly, which is where I was from back then. But yeah, that's what it was. And they diagnosed it. They gave me drugs. The drugs made me better eventually, and I was on a different combination of drugs that were trying to basically keep me from having any symptoms for years. I took like 20. I had never taken a pill in my life before I got sick with the colitis. Never taken one pill in my life. And I took 20 pills a day around then, depending on what we were trying to accomplish in that month or whatever. I took like 20 pills a day for around 5 years. Crazy. This was when I was 18, so maybe even closer to like 6 years. And it was awful. I look back and I think, man, all the people that were in my life at the time that were supportive, I will never forget. And there are a couple people particularly who were there for me when I was sick, who just called me, texted me. There are a couple people who expressed warmth and support to me in that time, and I will never forget it. I look back on those people who were there for me in that time as people that I will always be there for the rest of my life. You know, like I don't want to be too dramatic because it wasn't like I was that sick, but I was sick enough that by the time I got better, man, I was just so happy. I remember dreaming of having a calzone. I remember being bedridden, watching Rome in bed, and just dreaming of eating. I had never even had a calzone in my life. I was just dreaming of this calzone that would be, I did have one after I got better. I just dreamed of having this calzone, which the idea of which was so like beyond fantasy. It was like cheese in a bread thing, and it was just like a thing that I could never have eaten at the time when I was so sick. But it was just like, that was what I wanted to get back to. It was like the calzone dream. I remember this very clearly. And when I finally got better, I knew I wanted to. I knew I wanted to do something with my life that was more than what I was told to do. Like, having finally had those freedoms taken away from me, I actually look back on being sick, especially the first time that I got sick. Spoiler alert. Especially the first time that I got sick, I look back on that time as the time that it started to click in my head that I didn't want to waste my time doing something that I didn't love. And if I only had a certain amount of time that I would be healthy a year or in my life or whatever it was, that I didn't want to go and do something that someone else wanted me to fucking go do. Like, I felt very strongly, that's right, I'm cursing and things are falling. I just felt very strongly that I wasn't going to waste my time living my life the way other people wanted me to live. And I believe that me getting sick was the beginning of me eventually coming out. It was the beginning of me eventually picking poker as a career instead of going through the motions of a school that I wasn't in love with and classes that I couldn't care less about. I believe that me getting sick was one of actually the best things that could have happened to me in my life, because at 18 I developed an appreciation for being able to walk and being able to leave the house and being able to pursue things. And to get that kind of jolt at 18, I feel like was a major impact on me. And it's something that, especially, I think that in truth it was more so the second time that I got sick, but the two of them in combination definitely impacted me to not want to waste my time. I want to do what I love, and I want to do that. That was it. So I didn't quite take that. I didn't have that exact mindset at the time, but it was definitely beginning to develop. That's for sure. Right after I got better, I found a new doctor. When the pressure of finding out what it was no longer there, I found a new doctor who was great. He's a doctor that I still talk to these days. Amazing, understanding. We had so many good conversations. He made me feel like he really cared. Calls me when I was not talking to him for a while. Like, it was exactly the kind of doctor that I thought I would get the first time. So eventually I met a new doctor, and we had a plan, and I was able to get into remission, and I was pretty much mostly fine. By about December 17th or so, I was pretty much recovered. And in my sickness mindset, I was pretty sure I would never be better. Never mind better by Christmas. So I was pretty happy. I felt like I had survived something. I felt like I knew at some point I knew I wouldn't get to $100,000 in earnings because I couldn't even play. I remember trying to play a session, and I took the steroids, prednisone, and I remember being a mental wreck. I remember being a wreck and losing like 3K and being so pissed at myself that I would lose 3K playing a game so high stakes while I was pretty much still sick and on drugs on top of that. So I hadn't really played too much poker. Let me show you some of these pictures here. Let me show you some of these graphs. This is from the period of November the 1st through December 17th, which was about the day that I recovered. So this is earnings by date. So you can see that I played a bunch in November, and then all of a sudden stopped in about the middle of November, and pretty much didn't touch poker again until the middle of December, and even then not a ton. But I played a little bit, but I just couldn't once I was when I was really truly at the peak of my sickness. These are my earnings by location. Not anything too crazy, but I did have I'm pretty sure I lost a little bit, but it wasn't too bad. And I think this is my earnings to date up till the 17th. Oh, sorry, that's not what this is. This is earnings for the entire period. So this is earnings for the period without the dating spread around. So I ended up losing. I think that little spike at the end there is, or I don't know, maybe it's one of these other spikes. Shockingly enough, I have a very spiky graph. So you can see I pretty much didn't win, but I recovered, and I felt a newfound sense of destiny and direction. And there's one hand apparently that I played on towards the end of the middle of December. Let's check that out here. We'll get there. There we go. Oh. All right, now we're good. This is the only hand that I think I have from the time. This is from December of this period of my life. So, in this hand, I raised to 30. I'm looking on 1 with ace and king. I get called in big blind, who check calls on the flop, and then turn 2 pair. He checks. I bet $70. That seems okay. He raises huge to 325. I'm all in. I got 2 pair. What am I supposed to do? And he calls it off. Brick the river. Ace king? Ace queen of clubs is no good. Royal flush draw? Get out of here, royal flush draw. So that's really the only hand that I have from the period, because I really didn't play too much, and not many of the sites I played on at the time had hand histories. So that's probably one of the only ones that I got from there. So I'm wrapping this video up on the 17th of December. But you might be asking, hey, Jay Carver, why such a weird date? Why don't you take the end of the year? Well, you'll have to stay tuned for the next time. This is about when I started my poker career, and I started with a passion. I was restarted my poker career, I should say. And I wanted to get back in there and do some work and try to hit this $100,000 mark as soon as I could. Yeah, I'd been sidetracked because I was sick, but tis only a speed bump. Not a full derailing. So if you enjoyed this video, this is probably going to be this was the toughest video for me to make. I actually shot this video over 2 months ago originally, and didn't like how it came off because I thought I was too. It's kind of a sensitive video because we're talking about me being sick for the very first time, and I don't want to be over dramatic, but I don't want to be under dramatic either. So I didn't like how it came off the first time. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. If you want to see more of these, let me know. You can let me know on Facebook.com/JCarverPoker or here in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I make new videos 5 days a week, and we'll be back trying to run it up, I would guess, sometime tomorrow. So thanks so much for watching as always, guys, and I will see you back for more very soon. Peace!